I woke at 3 in the morning with frost on my right hand. Not cold, frost. A fine white lace of it across my knuckles, melting even as I stared at it, so that by the time I'd found the lamp and got it lit, there was only a damp patch on the sheet to show it had ever been there at all. It was the 11th of July. The city outside my window was suffering through the hottest night of the year. I sat with that hand pressed flat against my chest, feeling my own heart, and I did not need to hear the bell to know it was coming back. But I heard it anyway, an hour later. One long note, too short, and I understood. The way you understand a debt you have spent 40 years pretending was never yours, that the waiting was finally over. The summer I was 11, the older boys on Cracknell Street had a rhyme for the hot nights, and they taught it to us the way older boys teach you anything worth knowing, with contempt and a dare buried inside it, like a hook inside bait. "It's not touching," Ronnie Blythe told us, the three of us crouched behind the coal bunker in the blue dusk, Thomas on one side of him and me on the other. Ronnie was 13 and treated the 2 extra years like a title. "Touching's for babies. You have to taste it. Little piece off the corner, quick, before it melts on your tongue. And while it's melting, you say the rhyme." "What rhyme?" Thomas asked. Ronnie grinned, gap-toothed, delighted to be the one who knew. Iceman, walking cold and slow, take the name I give to you and let the taster go." Then you say a name, anybody's, and that's who he takes, instead of you. "Instead of you from what?" I said. "From whatever he came for," Ronnie said, as if this were obvious, as if I were the stupidest boy on the street for asking. "He only comes to houses where he's owed somebody. Everybody knows that. My uncle saw him outside the Hendersons the week before their youngest took the fever and died. But if you taste the ice and say the rhyme quick enough, you can put your name onto somebody else's tongue, and he takes them instead. That's the whole game. Nobody's ever brave enough to actually do it, though." I remember laughing, too loudly, the way you laugh when you want the others to believe you aren't afraid. "It's a stupid rhyme, Ronnie. It doesn't mean anything." "Then you won't mind saying it," Ronnie said, and looked at me, not at Thomas. And I felt the whole weight of the dare settle onto my shoulders like a coat 2 sizes too large. I did not sleep that night, nor, I think now, did Thomas. The card came 8 nights later, and this time I saw the driver clearly enough to know I never wanted to see him again. He sat too straight for a man, wrapped in a gray coat that did not stir even when a hot wind came down the street and lifted the dust between the cobbles. Where his face should have been, there was only a deeper fold of shadow, as though the lamplight simply declined to travel that far. And yet, I had the unshakable sense that the shadow was watching me, had been watching me, in fact, since before I'd come to the window at all. "There," Thomas breathed beside me. "You see him now?" "I see him." "You don't have to do it," Thomas said. And then, in a smaller voice, one I hadn't heard him use before, "Ronnie says you turn queer in the head if you look at him too long. Says his uncle's never been right since." I believe that completely. I still believe it. But belief and courage are not the same animal, and mine had gone somewhere small and hard and would not be coaxed back out. I stood at that window with my legs refusing to carry me down the stairs, and Thomas watched me fail to move for the better part of a minute before he said quite calmly, as though he were offering to carry the heavier end of a parcel, "I'll do it. Rhymes are for babies anyway. I'm not scared of a rhyme. Tom, go back to bed, Eddie." He was gone from the room before I could stop him. I did not see what happened in the street. I have only ever had Ronnie's account of it, given to me weeks later in a whisper behind the same coal bunker, his face pale and strange. That Thomas had walked straight up to the cart, as if he did it every night of his life, taken a sliver of ice off the corner of the block with his bare fingers and put it on his tongue. And then he said the rhyme, Ronnie told me, only he didn't finish it right. What do you mean, didn't finish it right? He said the name part wrong. He was meant to say somebody else's name, anybody's. That's the whole point of the rhyme. You give the Iceman a name, and it isn't yours. Ronnie would not look at me while he said the rest. He said, nobody. He said, take nobody. Take me instead. Leave my brother be. And then he just swallowed it. I have carried those words for 40 years, the way another man might carry a stone in his shoe. Small enough to bear, sharp enough that you are never, for one single day, permitted to forget it is there. Thomas took ill 3 nights later, though ill is a poor word for what it was. He complained of cold in a house where the plaster itself seemed to sweat with the heat, and when our mother laid the back of her hand against his forehead, she snatched it away with a small cry, as though she'd touched the stove. He's burning, she said to my father, but he's cold as a corpse will. Feel him. The doctor came the following morning, a tired, kind-eyed man named Aldous, who had brought half the street into the world and seen a good portion of it out again. He sat by Thomas's bed a long while, listening to his chest, before he finally spoke. Scarlet fever presents in many ways, he said, though I could hear in his voice that he did not believe his own diagnosis, even as he offered it. But I'll be frank with you, Mrs. Ashworth. I've never in 30 years of practice seen a fever patient's breath smoke in a July bedroom. He glanced, briefly, almost involuntarily, at the window, where a thin skin of frost had formed overnight on the inside of the glass, in a room that had no right to hold frost at all. Keep him warm, he said at last, because it was the only thing he knew how to say. Keep him warm, and we shall see. We kept him warm for 3 weeks. Nothing we did made the slightest difference. Thomas grew paler and quieter and colder, and on the 19th night of November, my mother went in to bring him his breakfast and found the bed empty, the sheets thrown back, the window still latched fast from the inside, and on the sill, in the pale morning light, the perfect white print of a small hand, fingers spread, already beginning to melt. The police searched for the better part of a year. They found nothing, because there was nothing in the ordinary sense of the word left to find. My mother never fully recovered. My father never spoke his son's name again in my hearing. And I told no one, then or for 40 years afterward, about a rhyme behind a coal bunker, or a boy who had walked to a cart alone because his little brother's legs would not carry him there. The bell came 3 nights ago, as I've said, and I sat at my window until dawn, telling myself the frost on my hand had been a dream, a trick of a hot night and an old man's failing eyes. I very nearly believed it. I have had 40 years of practice believing far less believable things. But last night, the bell came again, closer, and this time, I did not wait for dawn. I went down my own stairs in bare feet, the way I had gone down them once before as a boy, too frightened to finish what he'd started. And I opened my front door onto a street gone utterly silent. No wind, no distant traffic, nothing at all but the cart standing in a pool of gaslight that seemed to fall on it from no lamp I could see. The driver had turned his head toward me, and for the first time in 40 years, the shadow where his face should have been drew back like water pulling away from a shore, and I was looking at my brother. He had not aged a single day. His skin had the same blue-white sheen as the ice piled behind him, and where his lashes should have moved with the ordinary business of blinking, small crystals of frost clung there instead, catching the light. When he spoke, his breath came out of him in a visible cloud, though the night around us was suffocatingly warm. "You said it wrong," I told him. My voice did not sound like my own. "You were supposed to say a name, Tom, not nobody, not take me instead." "I know what I said." His voice was his own, unmistakably, only slower now, worn smooth the way a step is worn smooth by 40 years of the same foot falling on it. "I've had a long time to think about it, Eddie. The rhyme doesn't work if you refuse to give a name. It doesn't let you go. It just keeps you walking, driving, waiting for someone to say a name that finishes it properly, the way it was always meant to be finished. My hand had begun to ache, the same hand that had woken frosted 3 nights before, and when I looked down, I saw that the ache had a color now, a faint blue tinge spreading slowly from beneath my fingernails up across my knuckles, exactly where the frost had lain. "It's spreading," I said. "It's been trying to reach you for 40 years, Thomas said, and there was no cruelty in it, only a terrible, patient exhaustion. I've kept it from you as long as I could. That was the only thing I had left to give. Every year I didn't say your name, it stayed with me instead. But I'm tired, Eddie. I've been so cold for so long, and you're the only name I've got." The ice on the back of the cart had begun at last to melt in earnest, running in black rivulets between the cobbles, and I understood that I had perhaps 30 seconds to decide something that would matter for the rest of whatever life I had left, and that no version of the decision would ever let my brother rest, or let me sleep again, or undo a rhyme spoken wrong behind a coal bunker in the summer of 1923. I stepped toward the cart. Somewhere down the silent street, very faintly, I heard the bell ring once more. One long note, and then, this time, only one short,